are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Excellent. Okay,
Amazing. We're live and everything already.
we're live. I started it a few minutes early because, as you know, I haven't done one of these before. So,
It's
What-
good to always be prepared.
right? So I've just been sitting here like, hello. Guess we'll be ready to go.
Amazing. Well, it's nice that everything's up and running so smoothly.
Yeah. Well, we'll see whether it actually goes. It looks like it's going to Instagram. I don't know about LinkedIn. It doesn't look like it says it's going to start soon. So I'm not sure what's happening there. I don't know if I need to
Okay.
hit. Let me just see if I need to just refresh it now that
Sure.
we're live. It says it's streaming, but you never know with these things.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, the first time you just want to try it, right?
Yeah. So we are good on Instagram, though. Looks like we have a couple people that have joined, but
Amazing.
I'm not sure. Not sure if they're still there, but anyways, we will just move
Yeah,
forward.
let's just get
So
going.
thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for joining me today for our live. We are talking about whether feminine energy has a place in male dominated industries or not.
Hmm.
And I think we both think it does. But I'll just give a quick rundown on my background, and then Mintu, if you want to just give a quick rundown on yours, and then we can kind of jump into it. So my background is obviously in heavy truck automotive. I've been in that industry for 30 years, and I'm now running my own business called Rise and Thrive Mindset, which is help other women in the industry kind of cope with some of the issues and challenges that we deal with in dominated industries. So, Mintu, about you, what's your experience in the industry?
Yeah, so I spent 9 years in the luxury auto retail side of things. So same thing, heavily masculine dominated, like on our within the sales team and the management team, there was only two women out of, 15, 16 people that ran everything. So I spent 9 years in that industry. And I would say, I had a fair amount of success, but what I love about this topic that you're bringing up is the fact that for the first probably 7 years of my career, I was heavily in my masculine. And I did find success in that space. But when I started to really embrace my feminine energy, I think that's when things really started to shift for me.
Yeah, you know what? I would agree with that because I was kind of just thinking back on my career, and I was always like, I'm just going to be one of the guys. That way they'll accept me. They're going to want to work with me. They're going to think I'm cool. I'll be in. I'll be invited to things, and that was like a really big thing for me. And I probably did that for most of my career. Maybe into my mid 30s to early 40s, and then things started to change because yeah, again, you realize, okay, I'm not a man. I'm a woman. It's probably confusing to them too because I dress very feminine and at times I can act feminine, but for the most part I was pretty masculine. But I realized getting into my feminine was important because I wanted to connect with women more in the industry, and you can't do that when you're kind of in the boys club, right? So I really kind of took a step back and thought, I really want to help women. I want to work with women better. I want us to collaborate more, and being more feminine definitely, I think it definitely benefited me as a leader in.
Hmm.
So would you say that there's, I mean, I'm sure there are challenges. Like, do you think there's pushback from people when you try to be more feminine in the industry?
Well, you know what I think is really interesting about that is so I think if you framed it that way, like can you be feminine in a like we're talking about auto specifically, but any male dominated industry, like is there a space for that? I think most of the time the normal response would be no. Like, all the things that we equate to being masculine, you got to be tough, you got to go out and get it, you got to eat what you kill. Like it's especially auto, it's very uh like you have to go and chase. You're chasing always the next target, chasing the next deal, just chasing, 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 which is a very masculine energy. Okay. But what I've learned is that what has always set people apart is when they can step into those feminine frequencies. But I think what gets lost is people don't actually understand what that means. When they think of feminine, they think of softness and women, right? Of course. But the truth is every human has masculine and feminine energy, right? Every man, woman, whatever, we all have both. Now, again, the masculine is the doing, it's going out and getting and making things happen, which is obviously important. But the feminine is also the being, the nurturing, the ability to connect and hold space and support. And these qualities are what I found even in my male counterparts. The ones I found that had the most success were the ones who were able to step into that for themselves as well. So, when they were able to, because in my, where I worked, the store I was at, it was obviously still transactional because it was retail, but we had a lot of long-term standing clients, like families who would do business with us for generations and generations. The grandparents, the parents, the kids were all buying from us. And so that was a market where longevity and trust were super important. And that's in any sales aspect, but especially in the place I worked. Now, what I believe was able to sustain those clients, from whether it be from me or the guys that I felt like had a lot of success in that, were the guys who could tap into their feminine, right? And that would be being able to connect on a very open emotional level, right? Like where there's genuine trust and connection and their client could feel seen and heard and validated, right? Which is not that men can't do that, but it's this essence of being and being present in the moment that I think allowed them to rise to the top with these particular men. Now, the other thing I've seen though is, and this is my own thing that I dealt with when I was there, same thing how you said, like, I'll just be one of the guys. I'm gonna fit in and like, do all the guys the guy things. But I used to have, not I used to have, most of my male counterparts would get really emotional at work. Okay. And their emotion would come out in the matter of they'd yell and they'd scream and they'd butt heads and they're arguing with each other. And I used to always say to myself, you will never catch me getting that emotional at work. Like, not a chance will you ever see that happening with me. And like my old boss, he used to say, I've seen everyone cry in my office except you. And I was like, yeah, because to me, the emotional development and maturity was super important in that space. And what I found with these men is because they wanted to be in their masculine all the time and they didn't know how to embrace their feminine, that when their emotions surface, which we all have emotions, doesn't matter what you are, every human's made with the same ones, they didn't know how to process them. And then it would lead to these big outbursts, which ended up causing a little bit more strain than not. And so I don't remember what the original question was that you asked, but I guess like this topic of femininity, that's why I think it's so important for the man or the women, is because if you don't know how to really nurture those emotions in yourself, it leads to these massive outbursts that aren't beneficial to the business.
Oh, that's definitely true, and I've seen that too. Like I've even seen guys go at it like physically, like in the dealership that I was at. A couple of them went at it like because they were kind of sniping each other, and then they, of course, after that starts right, it then went physical, and you're like, I don't really think that's really the best way to kind of solve your issues. But you're right, they don't talk about it because they don't. I don't think they feel like it's safe for them to talk about things. Otherwise, they're going to look like they're weak, right?
Mhm.
And I guess my experience is a little bit different because I've worked in a number of. You were at the same location, right, for those 9 years?
I was, yeah.
Yeah. So I was in a number of different roles, and being in the heavy truck side of things, that's even worse. I'm going to say than auto. Like I'd say it's even more male dominated, driven. Like you have to be tough. So if you are feminine, if you are a woman and you're in your feminine, it's almost like they dismiss you because you don't maybe think you know what you're talking about. If you're not trying to like drink with the guys or be one of the guys, it's
Right.
almost like you're doing a disservice. So it's
They
a real.
probably think you're like, they probably think you're like, who is this? Like you're a ghost floating in and out there because it's like there's probably so few of you in the truck world. I'm like, what is this? Who is this person walking past me with long blonde hair?
Well, there
Like,
was like when I started in the industry, it was say like in the '90s. There was very few women in the industry that I could talk to or have a conversation with that weren't in like maybe say accounting, right? Which is
mhm,
like the traditional roles for women in any company, and they weren't
Mhm.
necessarily involved in the truck side of things. They just came to work every day and did the accounting stuff. So it was really tough because I didn't have anyone to talk to, and I really got treated like. And the reason why I wasn't feminine is because I kept getting treated like a secretary, or oh hey, could you photocopy this for me, or hey, why don't you run down the street and get me a coffee, like stuff like that. And you're like, well, no, hold on, no, I'm not. I'm here to like, I'll help, but I'm not here to get your coffee for you, right? I actually have a job.
Mhm.
I'm not the secretary, right?
Mhm.
So I found I had to be like super masculine. And like I said, it took some time for me to kind of work through that. Like being young and feminine is two strikes against you in that industry, right? So I really had to work against maybe what my natural instincts would be. I'm not an overly feminine person anyways. Like I like to
Mhm.
dress feminine, I like the heels, but I'm
Mhm.
probably more masculine, but I've like again, I'm trying to like get in touch with my feminine side because I think it's
Mhm.
important, especially like I said, as a leader. I think it's really, really important for men or women to have those feminine qualities because that's really where you can connect with someone when
Well, and
you're,
I think that, sorry to cut you
you
off,
know, no,
I think
that's okay.
that's a really great point that you just made though about the fact that it's like, you know, you felt like you had to be more masculine because when you're feminine, it was almost like again you became the assistant.
Yeah.
But I think that's also what's so important about the balance between the two, because feminine has a place in it, but the feminine can't be the only thing that exists. There still has to be balance between the two. But with what you're saying, as far as like kind of like again, now I'm the assistant, is it also comes back to of a healthy balance of like, can you sit in your feminine but still have boundaries and still command structure and and order around the energy that you give into the business. Do you know what I mean? And I love what you said just about leadership. Like I think that is what makes a great leader is you have the ability to lay structure and order and people trust in what you're saying and your ability to do because a leader ultimately has to lead. There has to be an action with that. But again, I think the qualities that make people a good leader that people want to follow you is that they trust you and they connect with you and they know that you see them and value them and hear them for who they are. And, I don't, as I'm saying that, does that only exist in the feminine? No, it probably exists in the masculine, but let's be honest, it excels in the feminine. Do you know what I mean? Like that is the ability to connect and nurture. No, that is a very feminine quality, but that is what makes the best leaders.
Yeah, I agree. So it's funny, I've had a female boss that I would say she was in her masculine energy and I didn't enjoy working for her. Let me just,
Hmm.
so I thought about, is that the kind of energy that I want to put out there as a boss or a leader? I guess I shouldn't say boss because boss is like, I'm in charge, do what I say.
Mhm.
More like
Mhm.
a leader where, yeah, I'm asking people, hey, this is what we're going to do as a team. Let's move forward. And it just serves you so much more to just to have that softer side with the empathy. And I'm not saying men don't have empathy, but I think they have a harder time kind of getting into that side of it. It's all very like, okay, no, this is the rules. This is what you need to do. Just go do it. And they don't really think about the emotional side, right? And not saying all men, again, like I don't want to paint everyone with the same brush because they're
Right.
not in general.
Right. Well, and I think with that same quality too is like the masculine energy also is very much a energy of we got to do. So like problem solve it. How do we make things happen? How do we make things happen? Which is obviously important business. You do have to go out and make things happen. But there's also an element of being able to surrender and hold space, which I think again exists in the feminine. And so like when we're talking about essentially having like let's say longevity in industries like this because it is very easy to burn out in industries like this if you're constantly in your masculine because you're constantly trying to do output. But I know what me with me the last couple of years of my career I had to really switch up how I was showing up because I wanted to last in a way where I didn't hate my job. You know what I mean? I eventually left there for my own reasons, but I wanted to make sure I left my career on a high. I didn't want to leave there knowing that they got everything out of me and I was in the valley. Like I didn't want to make a decision from that space. But being able to exist in my feminine and being able to have moments of just like breath, and like we don't have to force every deal. We can allow space for deals to come together. We can allow space for clients to trust us and like have that and know that it's gonna come. Do you mean? And I think I know with me in that industry, it's very easy to get sucked into like trying to squeeze everything you can out of anything. It's so ingrained in that environment. And again, I get it. And I'll be honest, I'm glad I learned that skill set about how to do that. But then everyone's burnt out, every single person there. Do you know what I mean? And when I go back to my old store and I visit with these guys, and some of them I have hold so dearly to my heart, and I've been gone for about a year and a half now, and I still see them going through the same things. And that's why I switched into what I'm doing, like burnout recovery with executives, is because it's not even so much the tasks themselves that are so draining, it's just the approach they're taking. And again, back to the topic of feminine, it's like the feminine energy should be able to hold space and just trust that their feminine energy attracts, right? Masculine goes out and puts out, feminine energy attracts. So like, again, how do we find that balance of being able just to trust, like, yes, you're doing output, you're going to find the business, but how can we just trust that we're getting to an energy space where we're also attracting people that want to do business with us?
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's the same. I mean, probably in any male dominated industry, but like in the truck industry specifically and at the dealership level, I think there's a lot of pressure for, like you said, to kind of just ring your customers, right? And that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't, they don't tend to try to take the time to build the relationship, right? They're just going for like, okay, we got to make this sale today. Let's just get at it and get the sale. They don't actually take the time to know the customer and know their pain points and know how they can help them. And that's, I think, where maybe women are a little more detailed, where we take the time, like, hey, how's your wife doing? Or how are the kids? Like, you're kind of, it's a holistic, more of a holistic view when we go after customers instead of just getting the sale. We want to make sure that we're actually providing a service or a product that they can use, that they actually need, right? Not just selling them something and then we never see them again because we sold them something they didn't actually need.
Yeah, it's like when you're just going after the sale, it's so transactional and people can feel that.
Yeah.
Like they can feel that they're a transaction. Where it's like when you're taking the time to see someone and hear them and validate them, you're actually creating a connection, which obviously from a business standpoint has way more positive impact for the business altogether. You know what I mean? Like, and that's how you have repeat clients. That's how you have people asking for you. That's how you have a foundational book of business. But again, I think it comes back to like, as humans, we're just in tune with each other, or whether we consciously know it or not. Like we are picking up on what the other person is doing, saying, feeling, whether subconsciously or consciously, you know. And so when we're not taking the time to be present with our clients, like, again, they can pick up on that, and that's not only just affecting the current transaction, that's affecting your ability to have one in the future as well.
Yeah. I think I think though that most people just tend to ignore that. Right? They know it's
Well,
there, know that it's there, but they just are like, I'm just gonna. It's kind of like, icky and fluffy, and some people just, well, especially, and again, like I don't want to paint men with all the same brush, but they're more like, I don't need to build that stuff. We just need to do the sale, and I don't need to worry about being softer, so we can build a relationship. I mean, at least
well,
in my, anyways.
Well, and I think part of that too, though, is they don't know what to do. Like when you talk to them about connection and
That's true.
trust and nurturing, I just think they're like, huh? Like what does that mean? And some women too. Like I'll be honest, I've had some meetings with some women and done business, and I can tell she's not necessarily connected to her feminine. Do you know what I mean? And it's no, not because I was there for so many years. Like I get it, but I can tell she's not connected to it. And to me, that's like, oh, honey, you're missing out on your superpower. Like that is your superpower. If you know how to tap into that and connect with that and use the masculine, like no one will touch you. Do you know what I mean? And I also like, because a common conversation that comes up is like, how do I succeed in a male dominated industry? And like, I looked at it like, I have the edge. Like, being the one of the few females in a male dominated industry, like I have the edge because I have I have a factor that the rest of you that doesn't come natural to the rest of you. So I can figure out how to use that edge as like a competitive advantage. My femininity is a competitive advantage. That's how I looked at it once I started doing the work. The first few years wasn't like that. I was trying to fit in with the boys club just like you were the first few years. But once I made that switch, that's when so much opened up for me, and not just from a performance and production standpoint, but just from a presence standpoint. And
Yeah.
like that's when I felt like I really started to like know what I was doing. Like now I'm like, oh, I'm in it. I'm in my mode now. You can't really tell me any different. I'm in a stride. I'm in a flow. Like I'm tapped in now.
I think though too, as you get like like in your career or further down the road, you're not scared to be who you truly are either. Like when you start to get older, you're like, okay, I don't care what I'm supposed to be. This is what is in alignment with how I need to be. And I think you just
Mhm.
move towards that more naturally. Well, and again, this isn't not everybody does it, but I think for me, and it sounds like for you as well, like it just becomes, yeah, this is where I feel better. This is how I want to be. I don't, it's so much effort to try to be like a man. It's a lot of effort. It's a
Mhm.
lot of effort. And it's like constant competition and thinking about like, wow, what can I say that would be cool? Or how can I do cool things so they'll still like me? And I'm not saying I don't still do that. 'Cause I
Right.
do.
Right.
I mean, you have to do some of it, but it's
But
exhausting. It's
But
exhausting.
you know what's also interesting about that as you say that? Like
Yeah.
I bet you if you asked all these men that we work with, they were like, why are you trying to fit in with us that way? Like, do you mean like I bet you if I went and asked my guys that I used to work with and told them that I used to be that way, they'd be like, why are you
What?
doing that? Like it's the same thing as like, have you ever heard like men say like, why do women put on fake eyelashes? Like we don't care about those. Why do you guys do that to yourselves? And you're like, do you know how many like guy friends, boyfriends, whoever have said that? Like, why do women do that? Like we don't care about all this stuff on your eyes. Like why are you doing that? So it's like almost the same conversation. It's like we might have felt the pressure to do that to fit in because
Oh
we were
yeah.
kind of fish out of water. But if you probably ask them, they'd be like, you could, we'd probably actually like you better if you were just a girl. Like, you know.
Yeah, I don't know, because in some of some of the trips that I had or some of the courses I took with other men, and they would all sit around and talk, and you know how they talk, right? And then I would just come out with something like just really crass, right? And then they would be like, "Oh, I see." And that was bad because it just went downhill from there. But I mean, I don't know, and like again, I think the truck industry is a little bit different than auto. I think auto is maybe a little bit more refined and maybe a little bit ahead of the heavy truck industry, because anybody you talk to in the industry has always said like in processes and just in the way that they're managing things, they're still, maybe 10 years. That's probably pushing it because technology's come a long way, but it's almost
Right.
like behind in all of those things. And
Right.
when I left the industry, so say I was in it for like 6 years, 6 or 7 years, left and did some other things, and then I came back, let's say 20 years later, to the heavy truck industry, and people would say to me, oh, it's really changed though, eh? Don't you think? And I'm like, no, it hasn't changed. It's still the same. But I was different coming into you know, how I was back then to how I am now. I
Hmm.
definitely have leaned more into my feminine, especially managing again, like being a leader and wanting to have connections, like with my male employees too, not just my female, but just being that sounding board, like making them feel like if they have an issue, they can come to me and talk about it, and it's not going to be a big deal, and we'll work through it. Right? There's
Hmm.
no hard and fast rules when it comes to, if somebody's sick or they have something going on with their family. I
Hmm.
think we do probably a better job of understanding those things and accommodating. So I
Right.
would I would be like, hey, listen, if you need to take a day, just take a day. We don't need to record it. It doesn't need to be your vacation. Just take a day and do what you need to do. And I think that went a long way with my
Yeah.
employees. And I
Yeah.
mean, I mean, does it really affect the company if you give your employee a free day? I don't think so. But
Well, and I think that's the beauty, I think, of being able to sit in your feminine more, not even just the feminine, your the space of, I guess, abundance, or just like not scarcity, because it's exactly what you said is right. Is are we really going to sink if we give an employee a day off, right?
right.
Like, now I know what one of my old bosses, what they would have said is, they're like, well, if I give them one person a day off, I got to give everybody a day off, and blah 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 blah. It's this snowball effect, and that's the fear. But then again, that's based in the fear that you're not able to receive business or abundance, which is very masculine dominated. Again, so if we're talking about the feminine, feminine energy is magnetic. We draw in, we attract. If we, like, not going too deep on things, but if you look at the anatomy of a man versus a woman, the woman receives, right? This is what we do. We receive. That is how life happens, right? Okay. So we draw in. That is feminine energies you draw in, and again, men have that. So when you're in this mindset of like, well, everyone has to be here constantly outputting, that shows you're not properly balanced, because you don't trust that the business can actually attract anything if you give everyone an extra day off here and there. Like, so then it goes back to, again, this scarcity mindset, which whenever you're running from a scarcity mindset, everything's attached to fear, and fear can never truly be abundant.
No. And I think the thing is like when somebody's saying that, like so when someone's like, "Oh, if I give that person a day off, I have to give everyone a day off." I'm like, "But how does anybody else know what the situation is? We're not discussing it. We're not saying, "Hey, I just got my megaphone. I just want to let you know Joe's wife is sick, so we're going to give him a day off." Like that's not what's happening, right? So I don't understand where that mentality comes from where they're worried about will
Fear.
everyone right?
It's
But
fear.
just doesn't, I don't know, that doesn't make sense to me. But that's why I'm saying like, maybe if it was a male in that situation, would they just be like, no, you can't take the day off, sorry, that's the rules, if you want it, it's a vacation day, right? Where we're a
Yeah.
little bit, oh, like, oh, you're sick, okay, no, I feel really bad for you, I think you should take the day, right? Because we're more just like, okay, just go and fix whatever you have to fix, right?
Right. Well, and I think part of that fear from a man, who it could be a female who did the same thing too, is that, like, okay, so yeah, so A, how are they going to know? But then also it's like, well, don't you also think that your employees, if they heard that, like, hey,
Yeah,
Joe's dad died and he needs another day off, and they willingly gave it to him, like, wouldn't that build morale in your staff? Do you mean, like, oh, they actually care about us as humans? And then the other part of that being like, well, but then if you're like worried your staff is going to abuse that, then you don't have the right staff in there,
yeah, that's exactly right. And it would be
right?
nice if companies actually took the time to think about those things and did the proper training to all of their leaders or their managers that, yeah, we're all humans, right? We're all going to have issues and deal with things. It's at your discretion if you want to let somebody take a day or whatever. It should be kind of like, I don't know, feminine training or something. How to be more feminine as a leader.
Compassion, compassion training.
I wonder how that would go over in the truck industry. I don't know. I don't know if that would be a course somebody would want to take.
Yeah, you'd have to dress it up in some different wording probably if you wanted anyone to do it. But like,
So
but again, like, we're talking about in the aspect of the feminine, but again, it just comes down to healthy business, healthy connection. That's it. Healthy business is healthy human relationship.
yeah.
That's all this is. And in order for it to be healthy, there has to be balance.
But how did you guys like cope with the competition though? Because you guys are probably, I know you said you were on the finance side, but the sales guys, I'm
Mhm.
sure fighting over deals. And how do you stay in your feminine when you're like scrapping for like that sale?
Well, I don't know if that I don't know how those two correlate, but like again, I think what that comes down to, be it feminine, masculine, whatever, is like when you're competing for deals, like, yeah, you do want to compete, but then it still comes back to a scarcity mindset. So like, if you're so worried someone's gonna outproduce you or steal clients from you or steal deals from you, then to me that goes to a self-worth issue,
Mm,
because to me, that goes to, well, you don't actually believe that there's going to be more deals that come in the door. You don't believe that you're capable of generating more business. Like if you're sitting there like really getting hyper focused on certain things and winning the case, like, and of course we would see that so often, Damien, because I was on the management side of things, so I was hearing like this guy's fighting over this and this guy's fighting over that. And okay, I appreciate the tenacity, because in that industry is also a lot of like, a lot of slick shit happens, right?
Oh
Where
yeah.
people try and backdoor you, right? So you want to hold your ground, but also it's an element of like, is fighting over this worth it, or am I just going to trust that the universe is going to send me some more business some way somehow, right? But again, I would tie that back to feminine energy, as far as just like understanding that you are receptive, you are magnetic, and you can draw these things into you as long as you're showing up in a frequency that is promoting that. But if you don't believe you're worthy, if you don't trust in who you are, then that will affect how you're presenting yourself in the business and to your clients.
Yeah. I just wish there was some kind of training, and not, I'm not just saying for men, like just in general, if there was some kind of training so people could learn the skill of leaning into the feminine. I don't know. I don't know if there's a way. I just think that corporation, and obviously this is why a lot of corporations that have women or more women in their company are actually more successful, or more diversity, not maybe not even just women, but more diversity or
Mhm.
more successful, as long as we're hiring the right person for the right job. Because I'm still a big proponent for that. I don't think we should just hire a woman because she's a woman. I mean, she has to be right.
Absolutely.
But we've
Yeah.
seen, obviously, more women in companies makes them more profitable, which means that's a lot more feminine energy for the most part. So how do we harness that for the, just for the company in general, for everybody to benefit from, and not just from women, like letting men know that it's okay to be in their feminine side. I'm not saying I want them to be feminine, but
Mhm. Yeah, no.
softer in things, and I think things would just run a little more smooth.
Yeah. Well, I know for me, like with the space I'm in, is like right now, again, I'm working more with the business owners, the executives of the companies. That's kind of my demographic right now. And so we start the journey based on burnout, because most of them are burnt out, right? And just like regaining the energy resources. But with my male clients specifically, what I'm constantly working on them with is taking care of themselves, and the women as well too, if I'm being honest. Like they've never been taught or have been given the belief system that they need to take care of themselves. You know what I mean? And so like for instance, I have this one client, he's been doing amazing, and with him, same thing, the idea of taking care of himself is a little foreign. And so I told him, you're the star player. So, like a LeBron James, a Tom Brady, whoever, if you have a star player, you're going to put all your resources into protecting that asset, right? Making sure they have a proper trainer and they have proper recovery tools and they have a nutritionist and a dietitian and a massage therapist, and whatever they want, they're going to get, because that asset gets the highest return on investment, right? So I tell him, like, no one can do what you can do. So we need to make sure we're protecting this asset and putting your energy in the places that give you the highest return on investment. That means taking care of yourself,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
Well, if
That
you
means
don't,
nurturing.
yeah, if you don't take
Exactly.
care
That
of
means.
yourself, no one's going to take care of you. Right? We get that.
Mm-hmm,
We've learned
mm-hmm.
that you have,
Exactly.
but men are have a tough time with that for sure.
Right. And a big part of that is societal too. Like men aren't encouraged to talk about their feelings. They're
No,
not encouraged to have connection. They're not encouraged. The crying is shameful. Like, so there's a societal aspect of it too that deters them from learning any of these skills. So we have to have empathy and compassion for that. It's not that they're just like neglecting it and not doing the work. They have also haven't been taught how to do the work, right? So we have to hold space for that as well. But like when you say like, how do we teach this? It might not be a course about femininity, but I think when we can just teach people that you have to honor your needs as a human first, that's like the first step in getting there, right? Because how do you just learn to nurture yourself, and then eventually you can learn to nurture everybody else?
yeah. Well, that's definitely that would be interesting. I wonder how we do that.
mean, I think things like this, though, we just keep talking about it.
Yeah,
We put the awareness out there, we put the energy out there, we introduce people to these concepts, we let them hear about it, like, and then the people who are ready to hear more and to get into this vibration, into this frequency, the right people will hear it, but we just have to keep talking about it, I think. And I think it is important for women who have existed in these spaces and
yeah,
seen how embracing that side of the energies, what it's done for your career, for the business, et cetera. I think it's important to talk about this stuff. Because I think a lot of people think about these concepts, but they don't really know how to put it, they don't know how to put it together or to execute it in the world, you know?
yeah. So I think like when I started my business and my main focus was supporting women in heavy truck or automotive, going through the stuff that I went through, getting them through that stuff sooner so that
Mm-hmm.
they can on their career and not have to worry about all the messy stuff. But I started to realize like, should this just be for women? Like I wonder if we focus so much on women in the industry that now the men are like, hey, like I need support too. And who's supporting me? Nobody, right? So I know I'm like, should I only be going focusing on women? Maybe I should be helping men too, because I've had a few men reach out to me and I'm like, oh, this is not what I was expecting. Because I'm like, you've read my website, like you've read my information, yes. And I'm like, so you
Mm-hmm.
know that I'm focusing on women. And one person said to me, well, so only women need help? And I said, no, absolutely not. That's not what I'm saying. But that's why I've just tried to focus in an area that I know where I know I can have an impact. But I think, the more I think about it, the more I think that maybe it's just gender neutral. Like maybe I should be focusing on whoever needs help and the support. Like you obviously you're working with men and women.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have mostly, is it like a split or?
No, I have mainly female clients right now. I would say it's like 70-30. But I think it's exactly what you said. I think the men do need help. And I think they're sometimes maybe a little bit more nervous to ask other men for
Oh yeah,
help. Do you know what I mean? And so being able to go to a female who still understands what is required of them on the masculine side makes sense. And then again, I think the important thing with what you said is that we have to just go back to it's feminine energy. Doesn't mean it's a feminine female being. It's
right.
the energy, right? That we're trying to tap into. Um but you know what I love about, like, when I at my old career, my finance office became like a therapy office. You know what I
Yeah,
mean, like,
saying
and
that.
like
Yeah,
and most of the people that were in there expressing to me what was going on were the men, and I was grateful for the fact that I could empathize what they're going through and what they're feeling and being able to hold space for them. But then I also understand what they needed to get done. And like I also was able to like see like, hey, you need to get out of your own way right now because this is where the blind spot is. You know what I mean? Um, but I'm also a believer that men do create order in this world, and strong, healthy men are very important to our society. Masculine, strong, healthy men. But I think in order for you to be a healthy masculine, that means you have to have a healthy balance of feminine within you as well too. And that's why I think working with both is beneficial, whether that's your focus or not. I think, but and then also the side of that too, though, is I think the more we help people, whether it's female or men in general, that affects everyone around them, whoever that is. Do you mean? So it's going to impact their circle and their world just by them being able to elevate and embrace their frequency as well.
yeah. No, I agree with that. Yeah, it just throws a wrench in things in your thinking because you're like you're so focused on one thing and going in one direction, and you're like, this is what I'm being called to do. This is what I want to do. But then you're like, wait a minute. And I read something about it was a study about how men are really struggling in the auto industry as well because
Mhm.
it's tough right now, right? And they just have nowhere. I don't think they feel like they have somewhere where they can turn to have a conversation without being labeled something, right?
Well, and you know what I find about auto, and if any of my auto people are watching this, I love you. Okay. So, but one thing I find about the auto industry is it's quite archaic in a lot of ways. And maybe
Yeah,
that's not everywhere. But I would say that I worked in a more forward thinking store. Like I would really believe that. But also stepping out of it, I do see how a lot of the principles are still quite limiting. And so, that makes sense to me that a lot of men are struggling in that area because I think they're also feeling that. But the 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 managers, the dealer principals, the GMs, let's be honest, most of them have done their bit in the industry for a couple decades now. That's why they're in the position they're in. As we know, when we get a little bit older, it's hard to like shift some of our beliefs, right? And especially if they've seen success through these pockets, it's hard to change. That's not just people in the auto industry, that's humans, period. Now, is it possible? 1,000,000,000%. But you got to really dedicate yourself to wanting that shift and change. And I think with that industry, because it has been, ran on some pretty archaic principles, getting outside of the box is vulnerable. And again, it goes back to that scarcity mindset. Like there's the mindset of like, well, what if this doesn't work? But then it's also just to think easy about like, well, what if it does?
Yeah.
Right?
There is a lot of, like, again, just going back to heavy truck, because I do think it's just so much more that way. But I think there is a lot of that. There's a lot of resistance, but we've also got people that have been in the industry like a lot, like you said, like a long time, and they're slowly, like, the dads are slowly kind of moving out of those roles, and the sons are coming in, or there's new fresh blood coming in, and
Mhm.
hopefully that mentality is going to change, because I honestly haven't seen much of a change from like the 90s till when I went back, like in 20, I think it was 2017 that I went back to the industry. I really didn't see much of a difference. I just, things were much more just under the surface. Instead of being overt and people saying things like the way they used to, it would be more like under the surface, right? So,
Right. Right.
yeah, hopefully, as you said, if we keep talking about this stuff and we can kind of change and let men know that it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to just to be more feminine, or in your feminine energy. I don't always see feminine because that comes across wrong, but more in your feminine energy, that it's okay. Like, we're not going to, it actually would be nice.
Yeah. And, I always go back to as humans, whatever you identify with, whatever, um, as humans,
That's a
the
good way of
parts of us the parts of us that we're typically the most ashamed of are the parts of us that bring us together. Do you know what I mean? Like the parts that we feel embarrassed by, are scared of, are we judge ourselves for, those are the parts of us that connect us the most as humans, because we all go through shit. We all go through shit. We all feel the gauntlet of emotions. We all feel pain. We all feel hurt. We all feel unimportant and unwanted at times. We feel rejection. We feel all these things. And so it's like, don't suffer through that alone. And not that this has got to become a cry fest. Like, I'm not saying that either. You still got to have composure and emotional regulation and development, right? It's like
yeah,
you can't just become a puddle. But like, not being able to identify that within you, acknowledge it, that is what makes it, that's what can make it catastrophic. That's when it turns into a fist fight in the showroom. That's when it turns into like guys getting so mad over a deal. Like, why are we fighting over a deal, guys? Like what are we doing here? But that's because they don't know how to process their emotions. Like,
yeah,
I remember one of my colleagues, we were sitting in a meeting one day, and he's like, I watched some movie with a dog. He's like, I couldn't stop crying. I was like, yeah, because look at all the trauma you went through in the last 6 months, and you didn't let yourself cry about any of that. And now you're watching Old Yeller, and all the tears are flowing. Like, I'm just glad they got out because you were getting real irritable at work. You know what I mean? Like, but it's the truth. Like, just like man, woman, we all have the same gauntlet of emotions. So if we can release them, we can get through this faster. And guess what? You're more productive, you're more connected, and business gets better.
yeah.
But
But I
everybody
just,
wants
I still think it's just up to the companies. Like, companies need to look at that and focus on that and make sure that they're doing that.
100% starts the leadership.
Yeah, and not, yeah, exactly. So we're going to put them through some kind of leadership training. They should have some kind of, okay, this is the way that you should be looking at things, and it's okay to have conversation. It's okay if you're struggling. It's okay to talk about that stuff, right? And that that would be good. I think that would be really good. I think it would just make it easier for us to work together too,
A
right? Because
hundred
we wouldn't
percent.
be so far apart.
100%. Absolutely. It's just, it would, yeah, it would allow people just to connect on a deeper level. And that's what drives all of this is connection,
But
right?
yeah, I mean, we have to be together how many hours a day when you're at work, right? So
Totally, totally. Like you might as well enjoy your time because we all know what those hours are like. You're pulling pinners, like you're there 16 hours a day in the retail side of things anyways, right? Like if you're trying to get a deal, you're there 12, 13 hours sometimes, right? So it's like we might as well try and get along while we're here. And not even just with your colleagues, with your clients too. They can pick up on that as well, you know?
kind of important to get along with your clients. Otherwise, they won't be clients for long.
Yeah, if at all, right? In the
Okay,
door and out.
so I guess we can agree that yes, the feminine energy definitely belongs, whether it's coming from men or women. We definitely agree because you've been in the industry, I've been in the industry. We know that it's important and that it's actually essential to good leadership for you to have things to run. I think to run smoothly.
Hmm.
If you don't
Yeah,
have it, if you don't have that balance, like you said, like you can't be, way one way or the other. Obviously, men are going to be more masculine, women are going to be more feminine, but just being able to lean into either side and have that balance, I think, is what is going to make things better in the industry for everybody.
absolutely. I think it's a competitive edge. Like I
Yeah,
truly do. When you can tap into that, I think it's a competitive edge that you will have as a business. Because I think one thing we can all agree on these days, like whether it's in business or just in the world, is we need more compassion and love for each other. Like
yeah,
look at all the things that are happening in the world, all the divisiveness, all the wars, all these humans against humans. Do you know what I mean? And I think the one thing, it sounds cliche, that we all need is more love.
yeah.
So if you can find that balance and you can just tap into just having that compassion and that connection with the person you're working with, the person you're doing business with, like that is your competitive edge because unfortunately right now we're lacking that in so many areas.
Yeah, and I do think just from what I've seen, for what you just said, if there is a company doing that, or if there are dealerships that are doing that, they will have an edge over the competition because the competition's not doing that. And it comes back to,
Absolutely.
a lot of just basic customer service skills and how you treat somebody, like treat someone how you want to be treated, right? So
Absolutely.
they would
Absolutely.
definitely you take that to heart, and that's the training, and that's what they expect from their staff. You are going to have
Mhm.
because people are going to flock to that. That's what they want. That's how they want to be treated.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Awesome. Okay. Well, any last thoughts? I know we're at about, I think, 40 minutes, 41
Yeah,
minutes.
no, this is a great conversation. I would just say for anyone who's watching this, if you want to know more about what Colleen does or what I do, like go visit our pages. We're here to help shift these within people. We're here to use our experiences to pour back into people and make your learning curve a little shorter than ours was. And I know I don't want to speak for you necessarily, but I think we're both here just to help people along their journey and make it a little bit more enjoyable and a little bit more present for whatever you're going after. So please follow Colleen, follow me. We can tag our Instagrams and our LinkedIn in the comments, but we would love to just connect with you and have conversation.
Yeah, I would agree. It's taking what we've learned and helping other people get to those realizations sooner so they don't have to go through the struggle and the pain. You're going to have some of it, but maybe we can cut out a big majority of it for you before, you go through that.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me, Mintu. It was great having you. Thanks for everyone that joined in on the live. If you have questions, like she said, you can follow her, you can follow me, you can send us messages if you have other questions. But thanks so much for joining, and stay tuned for the next live.
Yay.
Have
Okay, take care, Colleen. We'll talk to you soon.
bye.
Bye.